The night shift at the International Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Most of the staff spent their time watching screens filled with endless streams of data, checking for any unusual patterns in the cosmic noise. Dr. James Miller liked these quiet hours. They gave him time to think, to dream about what might be out there in the vast darkness of space. But this night was different. The first sign came at 2:37 a.m. Earth Standard Time. A strange pattern appeared on Miller's screen, something he had never seen before in his 15 years of monitoring deep space signals. At first, he thought it was just another piece of space junk reflecting signals, or maybe a glitch in the system. "Hey, Bill," he called out to his colleague across the room. "Could you check if we're getting any interference from satellites in Sector 7? Bill Walker, a younger technician with thick glasses, typed quickly on his keyboard. "All satellites in that sector are functioning normally, Doc. What are you seeing?" Miller scratched his graying beard, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Something weird. The pattern. It's too regular to be natural, but it doesn't match any human signals we know of." As they watched, the signal grew stronger. It wasn't just random noise. It had a clear structure, repeating in precise intervals. Miller's heart began to race. He had spent his entire career hoping for a moment like this, but now that it was happening, he almost couldn't believe it. He reached for the red phone, the one connected directly to the station chief's office. "Dr. Roberts, you need to see this. Now." Within minutes, the quiet monitoring room transformed into a hub of activity. Scientists and analysts rushed in, their eyes glued to the growing pattern on the main screen. Dr. Roberts, a tall woman with short white hair, stood in the center of the room, directing different teams to analyze the signal. "Run it through all known pattern recognition software," she ordered. "I want to know if this matches anything in our databases." Hours passed as they worked. Coffee cups piled up on desks, and the excitement in the room grew with each passing minute. The signal was becoming clearer, stronger, and more complex. Then, at 6:15 a.m., one of the computers started beeping loudly. "We've got it," shouted Lisa Green, the lead signal analyst. "The pattern. It's a language matrix, similar to how we encode our own deep space messages, but far more sophisticated. And..." She paused, her voice trembling. "It's definitely not from Earth." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to Dr. Roberts, waiting for her decision. She took a deep breath and picked up the secure phone to Washington. "Get me the president," she said firmly. "We've just received first contact." As the government machinery sprang into action, Miller and his team worked to decode the message. What they found stunned them all. It wasn't just a greeting or a simple message. It was a distress call. The decoded message painted a desperate picture. A massive fleet of ships, carrying thousands of civilian passengers, was stranded in the Kuiper Belt. Their advanced propulsion systems had failed after encountering some kind of spatial anomaly. They had been drifting for what translated to several Earth weeks, their systems slowly failing. But the most surprising part was why they had contacted Earth. These aliens, despite their advanced technology, had detected something unique about human civilization. While their own society had evolved to rely entirely on quantum computers and AI for solving problems, they had observed that humans still maintained what they called basic engineering skills, the ability to fix things with simple tools and understanding of fundamental mechanical principles. As Miller read through the translated message again, he couldn't help but laugh at the irony. These advanced beings, capable of crossing galaxies, needed help with what humans would consider basic repairs. Their society had become so advanced that they had forgotten the simple things. "Dr. Roberts," he said, looking up from his screen, "they're not just making first contact. They're asking for our help. They think we might be their only hope." Roberts nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her face. "Well then, Dr. Miller, I guess it's time to show our new friends what humanity can do." The greatest rescue mission in human history was about to begin, and it would prove that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most valuable ones. Captain Emily Ross stood in front of the mirror in her quarters, adjusting her uniform one last time. After 20 years of space rescue missions, she thought she had seen everything. But leading humanity's first contact team to help a stranded alien fleet, that was something else entirely. The launch pad at Kennedy Space Center buzzed with activity. 3 ships stood ready, retrofitted rescue vessels that combined the best of human engineering with some quickly adapted alien technology they'd received in the data packets. The ships weren't pretty, but they were practical, just like everything humans built. Final checks complete, Captain, reported Mike Turner, her chief engineer. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and a practical mind. She's not the fastest ship in the galaxy, but she'll get us there. Ross nodded, looking at her crew. They were an odd bunch, space rescue veterans, mixed with practical engineers and mechanics. The kind of people who could fix anything with basic tools and understanding. Exactly what the aliens had asked for. The launch countdown began. Ross felt the familiar rumble of engines beneath her feet. As they broke through Earth's atmosphere, she thought about the enormous responsibility on their shoulders. Humanity's first impression on an advanced alien civilization would be as their rescuers, if they could pull this off. After 18 hours of travel using the modified engines, they approached the stranded fleet. The sight took their breath away. Hundreds of massive ships, each one sleek and beautiful, floated silently in the darkness. They made Earth's best ships look like children's toys. "My God," whispered Turner, "they're huge." The alien ships glowed with a faint blue light, their designs unlike anything humans had ever created. But Ross noticed something else. There was no movement, no energy signatures. These beautiful ships were completely dead in space. Their communication system crackled to life. A holographic image appeared on their bridge. A tall, silvery being with smooth features. The alien's voice came through their translators, sounding almost musical. "Greetings, humans. I am First Speaker Wren of the Meridian Fleet. We are grateful for your response to our distress call." Ross stepped forward. "I'm Captain Emily Ross of the Earth Rescue Fleet. We're here to help." The alien's expression changed in a way Ross couldn't quite read. "You must understand, Captain. When we first detected your civilization, we considered you primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours. But now we have no choice but to trust in your basic knowledge." Turner couldn't help but chuckle. "Sometimes basic is better, sir. Mind if we take a look at your engines?" The first speaker gave permission, and Ross led her team onto the alien flagship. The interior was amazing. Everything smooth and automated, controlled by AI systems far beyond human understanding. But now, those systems were dark and silent. As they reached engineering, Turner whistled. "Well, I'll be damned. Look at this, Captain." The problem was surprisingly simple. The alien ship's basic power distribution systems had failed after the spatial anomaly. Their advanced AI couldn't adapt, and centuries of automation meant none of the aliens knew how to manually repair even simple electrical systems. "We can fix this," Turner said confidently, pulling out his toolbox. "It's just rewiring and basic power management. They've made it too complicated." The aliens watched in confusion as the humans got to work with what they considered primitive tools: wrenches, wire strippers, and manual diagnostic devices. They seemed shocked when Turner started manually rewiring systems, bypassing their advanced but broken automated repair protocols. After 6 hours of work, Turner flipped a switch. The engine room hummed to life, power flowing through the repaired systems. The aliens' expressions of shock made Ross smile. "How?" First Speaker Wren asked. "Our best AI systems couldn't solve this." "Sometimes you need a human touch," Ross replied. "We still believe in understanding how things work at the most basic level. Your systems are incredible, but they're built on the same fundamental principles we use." The first speaker was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps," they said slowly, We have much to learn from Earth after all. Ross looked at her team, already preparing to move on to the next ship. This was just the beginning. They had an entire fleet to save, and in doing so, they would show the galaxy that humanity's primitive knowledge was worth more than anyone had imagined. Tom Hayes never expected to come out of retirement. After 30 years of fixing nuclear submarines, he thought his days of emergency repairs were over. But when the government called asking for his help with the alien fleet, he couldn't say no. Now, standing in the massive engine room of an alien ship, he felt right at home. It's not so different from a submarine, really, he told his team of engineers. Big machine, lots of systems, and people's lives, depending on us getting it right. The alien engineer, whose name roughly translated to Blue, watched with obvious confusion as Tom pulled out his old toolbox. The sight of simple wrenches and manual diagnostic tools seemed to disturb the alien. "These are museum pieces to us," Blue said through the translator. "We haven't used physical tools in generations." Tom smiled as he examined a failing power coupling. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Your AI systems are amazing, but they can't improvise like a human can." The problem was becoming clearer with each ship they examined. The aliens had developed their technology in layers, each generation building on top of the previous one without fully understanding what was underneath. When the spatial anomaly hit, it damaged the basic systems that everything else depended on. "Look here," Tom said, pointing to a complex network of power conduits. "Your quantum drives and AI are fine, but they're useless without basic power distribution. It's like having a supercomputer with a broken power cord." His team spread out through the engine room, each taking the section. They were an odd mix: submarine engineers, power plant technicians, and even a few car mechanics. People who understood how things worked at the most basic level. "Hand me that wrench, Jimmy," Tom called out to his youngest team member. The young mechanic tossed it over, and Tom caught it with practiced ease. The aliens watched this simple exchange with fascination. "You trust your manual skills that much?" Blue asked. "Trust them. We depend on them," Tom replied, loosening a panel. "Computers and AI are tools, just like this wrench. But they're not replacements for understanding how things work." As they worked, Tom noticed something else. The aliens had no repair manuals, no technical diagrams. They had relied so heavily on their AI systems that they had lost the habit of documenting how their own technology worked. "Jimmy, start mapping these systems," Tom ordered. "Old school, paper and pencil. We need to understand how everything connects." Hours passed as the human team worked. They traced power systems, marked connection points, and gradually built a complete picture of how the alien ships functioned at their most basic level. The aliens gathered around, watching in growing amazement as simple drawings helped solve problems their advanced diagnostics couldn't understand. "There," Tom exclaimed, tightening the last connection. "Try it now." Blue touched a control panel, and the engine room hummed to life. Systems that had been dark for weeks began to power up, one by one. The aliens' eyes widened in what Tom assumed was their version of surprise. "How did you know?" Blue asked. "Our best systems couldn't identify the fault." Tom wiped his hands on a rag, a habit from his submarine days. "Your systems were looking for complex problems because that's how your technology has evolved. But sometimes a complicated problem has a simple cause. You just need to remember the basics." He pulled out the hand-drawn diagrams his team had made. "Here's everything we've learned about your systems. Not as pretty as your AI databases, but it'll help you understand what's really going on inside these ships." Blue took the diagrams carefully, studying the simple drawings with intense interest. "This is engineering in its purest form. We had forgotten this way of thinking." Tom looked around at his team, all of them tired but proud. They had done what the galaxy's most advanced civilization couldn't, not because they were smarter or more advanced, but because they had kept their connection to the fundamental principles of how things worked. Sometimes, Tom said, packing up his tools, you need to take a step back to move forward. Now, who's ready to tackle the next ship? His team grinned, already gathering their tools. They had dozens more ships to fix, but now they knew exactly what to do. The aliens were beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to understand and work with the basics that made all technology possible. The emergency alarm blared through the alien flagship's corridors. Red warning lights flashed as Captain Ross ran towards the main control room, her boots echoing against the metal floor. "Status report," she called out as she entered. First Speaker Wren's silver face showed what humans had learned to recognize as fear. "Life support is failing on the civilian ships. We have less than 48 Earth hours before systems begin to shut down completely." The situation was worse than they had thought. While Tom's engineering team had successfully repaired the main power systems on several ships, the fleet was massive. Over 300 vessels still needed attention, and each one carried thousands of alien civilians. "Launch Operation Lighthouse," Ross ordered into her communicator. "All teams deploy." Now, within minutes, Earth's rescue fleet sprang into action. Dozens of retrofitted shuttles, each carrying teams of human engineers, launched from their carrier ships. They looked tiny next to the massive alien vessels, like worker bees approaching giant hives. Inside one of the shuttles, Linda Martinez checked her tool belt. She had spent 15 years maintaining life support systems on space stations, but this was different. They had to work fast, and they had to get it right the first time. "Remember," she told her team, "these people have never dealt with system failures before. Everything's always been automated. We're their last hope." Their shuttle docked with one of the civilian ships. The scene inside was tense. Alien families huddled together, watching the humans with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The ship's air felt thin. The life support was already struggling. Linda's team got to work immediately. They split up, following the manual diagnostics they had learned from Tom's earlier successes. The alien technology was advanced, but the principles were the same. Air needed to flow, power needed to circulate, and systems needed to communicate with each other. "Found it," shouted Pete, one of her technicians. "The main oxygen recycling unit is offline. The backup systems are trying to compensate, but they're failing too." Linda rushed over. The problem was familiar, similar to issues she'd faced on Earth's space stations. But the alien systems were more complex, designed to never need human intervention. "They've made it too complicated," she muttered. "Pete, help me bypass the AI controller. We're going to run this manually." The aliens watched in amazement as the humans used simple tools to tackle their advanced technology. Linda's team worked quickly, rewiring systems and creating manual bypasses. They had to ignore the elegant AI interfaces and work directly with the basic machinery underneath. In other ships across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Human engineers and technicians, armed with basic tools and practical knowledge, fought against time to save thousands of lives. They used everything from wrenches to duct tape, finding simple solutions to complex problems. Time was running out. Linda's hands were steady as she made the final connections. "Everyone clear. I'm switching to manual control." She held her breath as she flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a loud hum, the life support systems came back online. Fresh air began flowing through the ship. The alien families cheered in their own way, a musical sound that needed no translation. "How did you do this?" asked the ship's administrator, staring at the jury-rigged but functional system. "Our AI said it was impossible to repair without a complete replacement." Linda smiled as she packed up her tools. "Your AI thinks in terms of perfect solutions. Humans, we're good at finding ways to make things work, even if they're not perfect. Sometimes good enough is better than nothing." Her communicator crackled. It was Captain Ross. "Martinez, good work. But we got reports of critical failures on 12 more ships. How fast can your team move?" "We're on our way. Linda replied, already heading back to the shuttle. Her team followed, tired but determined. They had proven that humans could save these ships. Now they just had to save them all before time ran out. As their shuttle undocked, Linda looked back at the alien ship they had just saved. Somewhere in that massive vessel, thousands of beings could breathe easier because of human ingenuity. It wasn't about having the most advanced technology. It was about understanding how things worked and being willing to get your hands dirty to fix them. "Next ship," she said to her team. "Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do." Jack Wilson had always believed that anything could be fixed with enough duct tape and willpower. After 20 years as a maintenance engineer on offshore oil rigs, he had learned that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. Now, floating in zero gravity inside an alien ship's power core, he was about to prove that theory on a galactic scale. "You cannot be serious," said Green, the alien engineer assigned to his team. The translator conveyed both disbelief and worry in their voice. "That is a critical power junction. It requires precise calibration by our most advanced AI systems." Jack grinned as he pulled a roll of duct tape from his tool belt. "Sometimes the old ways work best. Watch and learn." The power core was a marvel of engineering, a complex network of energy conduits that would have powered a small city on Earth. But right now, it was failing because of a simple problem. Vibration had loosened several key components, and the ship's automated systems were too sophisticated to consider such a basic issue. "Body," Jack called to his assistant, "hand me that metal plate and the wire bundle." Working together, they created a makeshift brace using spare parts and liberal amounts of duct tape. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold the components in place long enough for the power to stabilize. Green watched in what seemed like horror as the humans essentially patched their advanced technology with what they considered primitive materials. "This is impossible," Green protested. "Our simulations show." "Simulations can't account for everything," Jack interrupted, making final adjustments. "Sometimes you need to trust your gut and work with what you have." He nodded to Body, who began the power-up sequence. The core hummed to life, energy flowing smoothly through the newly stabilized components. Green's eyes widened in their species' version of surprise as all systems returned to normal operation. But how?" they asked, studying the makeshift repair. "This solution should not work." "That's the thing about humans," Bobby explained, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We don't always know if something will work, but we try anyway. Sometimes that's all you need. The willingness to try the impossible." Word of their unconventional repair method spread quickly through the fleet. Soon, other alien engineers were approaching the human teams with problems they had thought unsolvable. They watched in amazement as humans tackled complex issues with simple tools and creative thinking. In the fleet's medical ship, a nurse named Mary Cooper used knowledge from fixing her daughter's toys to repair delicate medical equipment. On another vessel, a retired plumber figured out how to restore water recycling systems using principles that hadn't changed much since ancient Rome. Captain Ross received an urgent call from the fleet's education vessel. When she arrived with Jack and his team, they found a room full of young aliens gathered around a human engineer named David, who was teaching them how to use basic tools. "Your society advanced so quickly that you skipped some important steps," David was explaining as he showed them how to use a wrench. "These aren't just tools. They're connections to the basic principles that make all technology possible." The young aliens were fascinated. They had grown up in a world where AI handled everything, where physical tools were considered relics of a primitive past. But now they were learning that understanding these basics could be the difference between helplessness and self-reliance. Jack watched the scene with pride. "You know," he said to Captain Ross, "we're not just fixing their ships. We're teaching them something they lost along the way." Ross nodded. "The human touch. The ability to improvise, to think differently, to work with our hands. Sometimes moving forward means remembering what came before." As they headed to their next repair job, Jack patted his trusty roll of duct tape. The aliens might have mastered quantum physics and AI, But humans had mastered something just as valuable: the art of making things work, no matter what. "Come on," he called to his team. "I heard the hydroponics ship needs our help. Anyone up for teaching some advanced aliens how to fix things with paperclips and rubber bands?" The human engineers laughed, already gathering their tools. They were changing the galaxy, one simple repair at a time. The makeshift classroom aboard the alien flagship was an unusual sight. Rows of Meridian engineers sat at stations normally used for AI interface training, but instead of connecting to computers, they were learning to use hand tools. At the front of the room, Tom Hayes drew simple diagrams on a borrowed display screen. "The key to fixing anything," he explained, holding up a wrench, "is understanding how it works at its most basic level." The aliens watched intently as Tom demonstrated basic repair techniques. It had been 3 weeks since the humans arrived, and while most of the fleet's critical systems were now stable, something unexpected was happening. The Meridians were hungry for knowledge, not of advanced technology, but of fundamental engineering principles. First Speaker Wren stood at the back of the room, watching with Captain Ross. "Our people have not held tools in their hands for generations," they said softly. "We thought we had evolved beyond such things." "Sometimes evolution means remembering where you came from," Ross replied. "Your technology is incredible, but it grew so fast that you lost touch with its foundations." In another part of the ship, Linda Martinez was having an interesting conversation with a group of alien scientists. They had gathered around a table covered with both human and alien technical manuals. "Your quantum theory is fascinating," one of the alien scientists said, pointing to a complex equation. "But you approach it differently than we do. You try to understand it, not just use it." Linda smiled. "That's the human way. We're curious. We want to know not just that something works, but why it works. Even if we can't fully understand it, we try." The cultural exchange wasn't just one way. The aliens were teaching the humans too. They shared their understanding of advanced physics, showing how their ships could bend space itself. But now they explained it in practical terms, trying to bridge the gap between their theoretical knowledge and human hands-on experience. In the engine room, Jack Wilson and his team worked alongside alien engineers, combining both cultures' approaches to problem-solving. They had created a new repair manual that merged human practical knowledge with alien technical expertise. "See, if you understand the basic principles," Jack explained to an alien apprentice, "you can fix almost anything. Your eye is amazing, but it can't improvise like a human mind can." The alien carefully picked up a screwdriver, holding it like it was made of glass. "We thought tools were primitive," they said. "But now I understand. They are extensions of intelligence, not replacements for it." In the fleet's main library, something remarkable was happening. The aliens had started creating a new database, different from their usual AI-managed systems. This one was filled with practical knowledge, repair techniques, and basic engineering principles learned from the humans. "We cannot rely solely on AI anymore," Green told Captain Ross during a meeting. "Your people have shown us that true resilience comes from understanding, not just automation." The humans had found their own learning curve steep but rewarding. They absorbed advanced concepts more easily once they connected them to practical applications. Theory and practice began to merge in new and interesting ways. As evening approached, by Earth time, Ross stood with First Speaker Wren in the observation deck, watching Earth teams shuttle between ships, continuing their work. "Your people have changed us," Wren said. "We thought we were coming to teach primitive beings about the galaxy. Instead, you have taught us something we had forgotten." "What's that?" Ross asked, though she already knew the answer. "The value of understanding, of working with our hands, of knowing how things work, not just that they work." Wren turned to face her. "We want to propose something, a permanent exchange program between our peoples." Ross smiled. This was more than just a rescue mission now. It was the beginning of a partnership that could benefit both civilizations, human practical wisdom combined with alien advanced technology. "I think," she said, watching another repair team head out, "this is the start of something amazing for both our peoples." 1 month after the first distress call, the massive alien fleet hung in space just beyond Earth's moon. Their ships no longer drifted helplessly. Every system had been repaired, every crisis solved. But the real changes went far deeper than just fixed machinery. In the flagship's main hall, humans and aliens gathered for what the media back on Earth was calling the handshake ceremony. Captain Ross stood beside First Speaker Wren, both facing a mixed crowd of their peoples. "When we first called for help," Wren began, their voice carrying through the translators, "we thought we were facing our darkest hour. Instead, we found our greatest opportunity for growth." Tom Hayes sat in the front row, his old toolbox at his feet. Next to him, Linda Martins and Jack Wilson nodded in agreement. They had all seen the transformation over the past month, not just in the aliens' technology, but in their way of thinking. "Today," Wren continued, "we do more than just thank our human friends. We declare Earth a guardian world, a civilization that holds essential wisdom that the galaxy must preserve." The announcement sent whispers through the crowd. Guardian World status was the highest honor the Meridian civilization could bestow. It meant Earth would have a permanent seat on their Council of Worlds. Captain Ross stepped forward to speak. "A month ago, we thought we were just coming to fix some ships, but we found something more important. We found that progress isn't just about moving forward. Sometimes it's about remembering the foundations that got you there." In the audience, Green, now the head of the new Practical Engineering Division, held up a wrench, a gift from Jack's team. Other aliens had similar tools, no longer seeing them as primitive objects, but as symbols of a deeper understanding they had gained. "But we learned from you too," Ross continued. "Your advanced science, combined with our practical knowledge, opens up possibilities neither of us could have imagined alone." She gestured to a group of young engineers, both human and alien, who had been working together over the past weeks. They had already created new technologies that combined the best of both worlds. AI systems that could think creatively like humans, and tools that merged simple mechanics with quantum theory. "As part of our new alliance," Wren announced, "we will establish permanent exchange programs. Human engineers will serve on our ships, teaching their practical wisdom, while our scientists will share our advanced knowledge with Earth's institutions." The first group of human engineers had already volunteered to stay with the fleet. Similarly, several alien scientists were eager to visit Earth's universities and technical schools. But more importantly, both civilizations had learned to value what the other could teach. Tom stood up, carrying something covered in cloth. "First Speaker," he said, "we have a gift for your people." He unveiled a simple wooden toolbox, filled with basic tools. But alongside them lay data crystals containing all of humanity's accumulated engineering knowledge, from the wheel to the latest space technologies. "These tools built our civilization," Tom explained. "Not just the physical tools, but the knowledge of how to use them. The wisdom to understand that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." Wren took the toolbox with obvious reverence. "And we have something for Earth as well." They presented Captain Ross with a small device, a quantum computer that had been modified to interface with human technology. But more importantly, it contained the complete scientific knowledge of the Meridian civilization, translated into terms humans could understand and apply. Together, Wren said, "we will build something greater than either of us could alone." As the ceremony ended, Ross looked out the window at Earth, glowing blue in the distance. The mission had started as a simple rescue operation, but it had become something far more important. A reminder that true advancement comes not just from new discoveries, but from understanding and respecting the fundamental principles that make all progress possible. "Ready to head home?" she asked her team. "Home." Jack grinned, looking at the mixed group of humans and aliens already planning their next project. "Captain, I think we've just made the whole galaxy our home." And he was right. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure, teaching the stars that sometimes the oldest wisdom is the most valuable of all.